Hi guys, this is Cycle 1, Week 15 Art, and we are going to be continuing our study of great artists together. So far we have looked at Giotto in Week 13, and then Ghiberti was last week. And this week you get to introduce your students to Fra Angelico, who was another early Italian Renaissance artist. So we are going to be able to identify some similarities between his work and the two artists we have studied so far, but there are a few things that set Fra Angelico apart, some unique things that we will zero in on when we get to that part of class. So I will go over that with you. The first thing that you're going to want to do, that you could do with your class, is review the artist we studied last week, that being Ghiberti. If I could highlight just a few things about him, some takeaways, it would be that he was a sculptor during the Italian Renaissance. He sculpted the two sets of doors at the it was called the San Giovanni Baptistery in Italy, and one set of those doors is nicknamed the Gates of Paradise because it just turned out so stunningly beautiful, and the detail and all of it earned that nickname. So you could mention that. Relief artwork is the other key point, key takeaway. That's what we practiced in community with the wiki sticks and the gold foil, pushing it down around those sticks. That relief artwork, that's the kind where it's a sculpture that's like two-dimensional. If you walked around to the back of it, you wouldn't see any part of the artwork, but on the front, it pops out from a surface. So those are the main things that you could mention if you do choose to review Ghiberti with them. And from there, you're going to jump into our artist that we're studying today, and that is Fra Angelico. So he's known as Fra Angelico, but that wasn't his real name. It was Guido de Pietro, and he was Italian. But he earned the name Fra Angelico, which translates to angelic brother or angelic friar, because of the way he lived his life, his piety, his humility, and his spirituality. So those things identified him. That became his reputation and what he was known for. And I think that shows up really well in his artwork too. Just gorgeous biblical scenes that he loved to paint. And so you could mention that to your class. He created over 180 paintings in his lifetime. A lot of those were frescoes. His favorite theme seemed to be the Annunciation, and so he did at least 13 versions of that we know of, each one just a little bit different than the other. So that's kind of a neat thing too, to see an artist that loved a particular subject and was comfortable doing it over and over again and refining his work and just like letting it evolve over time as he changed as an artist. I'm going to bring these with when we meet in community, just some additional pictures to add to what you already have in your orange folders. This one is one of his versions of the Annunciation. So we have the Angel Gabriel right here, and then Mary over here, and just let your students get a close look at their expressions. Let them notice the kind of colors that Fra Angelico used to set the mood for this, and this particular window here in the back, that's one of the things that this version of the Annunciation is known for, because the eye is kind of drawn to it being where it's located in the painting. It's a barred window. There's so much symbolism that Fra Angelico loved to use when he did paint his artworks too. But what also makes this one stand out, I really like it, is the wings on Angel Gabriel, the different colors that he chose to use there. So you can show that to your class. And then we have this other version. This is a nice zoomed in look at another Angel Gabriel, this one using a lot of gold leaf and these kind of softer pink hues all throughout, tons of detail. So let your students get a good look at that too. And this is going to be just like what we're going to be working on together in community for our activity today. And I wanted to mention one more thing, the art technique that he employed and a lot of early Renaissance and throughout the Renaissance artists would use is called sfumato, and that's an Italian word used to describe this very fine shading of colors one into the next, like a gradient effect. And what that accomplishes is a very smooth surface. And so when you look at Fra Angelico's artwork, or you look at like a Leonardo da Vinci, and their skin just has this very smooth appearance and hair and clothing, all of that, that's achieved using sfumato, where the artist has to use just a little bit of paint going into the next color, where the human eye can't tell where one color ends and the next begins. So we are going to be practicing that just a little bit, especially older students should be able to try that out with the oil pastels that we're going to be using for activity today. But even if you just use the word right up front, sfumato, that's something that Fra Angelico used when he was doing his artwork. And then you can dive into the activity. You'll have a Ziploc bag, and in it, each student will get a template. This is our Angel Gabriel. It's pre-cut where the halo is going to be, but you can pass these out. Also in your Ziploc bag, you should have pre-cut pieces of the gold foil, just like what we used last week, but these are smaller. Those are one for each student. You should also have black cardstock that's pre-cut as well. They won't need the foil and cardstock right up front, but each student will get one of each of those things. I do not think in your bag you have these other materials, but you are going to need to grab them out of your bin. That being glue sticks and some cotton swabs in case you want to just be prepared for kids who don't want to touch the oil pastels and blend with their fingers. They can do the same effect using a cotton swab. Get your oil pastels out of your art bin as well. And then scissors. Scissors would be handy for older classes, especially if you decide that you want to let them add additional gold foil pieces. They're going to need to be able to cut those out and paste those down. So on your script, I walk you through the steps. I'm just going to show you kind of what to expect. The first thing you want to do is have them color this in. You can prop up your orange folder that has Fra Angelico artwork in it if that's helpful, and just kind of tell them these are the colors that he liked to use. That doesn't mean they can only use those colors, but you kind of get an idea of where his palette was at, what he liked to do. Try to have them color as much of it in as possible, because when they're done doing that, they're going to be pasting it onto a piece of black cardstock. And the more color there is on this template, I think the more of a contrast you're going to get as it pops against that black cardstock. So encourage them to color in as much as they can. And if you decide you want to teach them how to do sfumato a little bit, what we're going to do with oil pastels is simply, you can pick two colors that are close to each other, or you can choose one that's quite a bit different than what's right next to it. For here, we practiced it a little bit with purple against like an aqua. So they just choose a spot to add that color to, and then you can use your fingers to smear it out. And then you get this neat kind of blending. Maybe some students will be up to the challenge of adding a lot of colors to the wings or anywhere else, but that's just an opportunity for them to practice something that our artist this week was famous for using. So once they've colored in all of their Angel Gabriel template, you're going to make sure you give them a piece of black cardstock. Actually, let's do the foil first. You're going to give them a piece of gold foil. And the best way to do this is to get a glue stick and apply the glue just right around where the halo is, so that it will hold it down. They don't need to put glue really anywhere else. This is enough. So they'll put glue there. Moms can help the younger students with that a little bit. And then you're going to take your gold shiny side and stick it right on top of where you just put that glue, behind the opening of the halo, and give it some firm pressure to keep it down. And now we have our halo on our figure. So there is this look that Fra Angelico and many other Renaissance artists would use. And you might want to use that as a time in class to talk about why do Renaissance artists like to add halos to their figures. Well, it would kind of show this inner goodness that the character had. It would convey this idea that they are holy or set apart for God's purpose. So you'd see that a lot with biblical figures in artwork in the Renaissance. Also, gold leaf was super handy for Renaissance artists because This was during a time where there's no electricity, and so candlelight is the primary source of illumination inside of churches or a monastery or a baptistry at night, and or during the day where there's just no windows in that part of the building. And so when candlelight bounces off of gold leaf, it really is bright and it shines in an extra lovely way. And so when you put that around a figure, I think that just established this idea of them glowing almost even that much more. And Renaissance artists were strategic in where they would put gold leaf in their artwork so that the light that was coming in from windows or more likely candles would really bounce off of it and just bring this artwork to life in that way. So that's really cool that they knew how to do that, and that's something we get to practice in class today together. Once they have this on their Angel Gabriel template, you're going to give them the black cardstock. And for this, really simple. Again, you're applying the glue stick to the back of your paper, but just the perimeter. Just help them get it around the edges, and that should be sufficient. And they're going to apply that down to the pre-cut cardstock. And then you could stop here if you have younger students and you've used up most of your time. This is great. This accomplishes what we're studying for Fra Angelico. Put a name sticker on the back if you have those pre-printed out. If you don't, you could grab a oil pastel, just write their name, it'll probably show up okay on the back, but those stickers are handy, so you'll want to get those from the bin before you show up to community on Tuesday. But if you have older students and you have time, you could use some of the extra scrap pieces of the gold foil and get the scissors out, and this is really easy. All they have to do here is kind of cut triangular pieces off of the foil, or maybe circles, whatever they're interested in doing to enhance their artwork, and then just using a glue stick to put them down. One of my kids did this and just wanted to put extra triangular pieces around the halo, but maybe some students would be inspired to try adding it to the wings, maybe additional adornments around there or on the clothing of Gabriel. But it'd be fun to experiment with that if you guys have time. And so that's the activity in a nutshell. You'll want to make sure, though, that you have all those extra materials in your bin. If you don't, please get in touch with me before we meet on Tuesday, and I will gather it up and I'll bring it to community and distribute it. But otherwise, you should have what you need in the Ziploc bags. And yeah, I hope you guys have fun studying Fra Angelico this week.